Preparing for an operations analyst at Bank of America interview? You've reached Candy Mentor, and this video is for you. We'll walk through 20 key questions you're likely to face. For each question, you'll see a sample answer, followed by the key points to cover. Subscribe, like, and share, and drop a topic request in the comments. Question 1. Why do you want to work as an operations analyst at Bank of America? What attracts me is the combination of scale, discipline, and real business impact. In operations, small process failures can affect clients, risk, and financial reporting, so I like the responsibility attached to getting things right. Bank of America's focus on responsible growth also fits how I work. Strong controls, teamwork, and client outcomes. I want a role where I can use data, process thinking, and attention to detail in a fast-moving financial environment. While answering, focus on Bank of America's scale, responsible growth culture, exposure to financial markets, control-focused operations, and your interest in solving process, risk, and client service problems. Question 2. What do you think an operations analyst does in a bank? An operations analyst makes sure banking and markets activity is processed accurately, controlled properly, and completed on time. That can include reconciliations, settlement monitoring, client onboarding checks, payment processing, reporting, and resolving exceptions. The role is not just administrative, it protects the bank from operational risk. If a trade, payment, or account setup is wrong, operations identifies the issue, fixes it, escalates when needed, and strengthens the process. Make sure to cover transaction support, reconciliations, exception management, controls, reporting, stakeholder communication, and how operations connects front office activity with risk, finance, compliance, and clients. Question 3. Walk me through the trade lifecycle and where operations is involved. A trade starts when the front office executes it and captures the details in the system. Operations then helps confirm economics, match the trade with the counterparty, monitor settlement, resolve breaks, and reconcile cash or positions after settlement. If something does not match, like price, quantity, or settlement date, operations investigates. The goal is clean processing from execution to books and records, because trade errors can create client issues, funding costs, and regulatory risk. In your answer, talk about trade capture, confirmation matching settlement, reconciliation, exception handling, and the importance of timely communication between front office, counterparties, custodians, and clients. Question 4. How would you investigate a reconciliation break? I would first define the break clearly: amount, account, product, date, and source systems involved. Then I would compare transaction-level details to separate timing differences from genuine errors. For example, a cash break may be caused by a late booking, incorrect fee, failed settlement, or duplicate entry. I would document the evidence, contact the relevant team, resolve or escalate based on risk, and look for root causes so the same break does not repeat. Be sure to mention comparing source systems, checking timing differences, reviewing transaction details, identifying root cause, documenting evidence, resolving or escalating, and preventing repeat breaks through process improvements. Question 5. How do you prioritize tasks when you have multiple deadlines? I prioritize by risk, deadline, and downstream impact. Anything regulatory, client-facing, settlement-related, or high-value gets immediate attention. Then I look at dependencies. If another team cannot proceed until I finish a task, I move that up. I use a tracker to monitor status and blockers, and I communicate early if timelines are at risk. The key is not just working hard, but making sure the most critical items are controlled first. While answering, focus on risk-based prioritization, regulatory or client deadlines, materiality, dependencies, communication, use of checklists or trackers, and keeping stakeholders updated before issues become urgent. Question 6. Tell me about a time you improved a process. In a previous project, I noticed our monthly report required manual copying from several files, which created delays and version control issues. I mapped the steps, identified repeated actions, and built a structured Excel template using formulas and validation checks. I also documented the process so others could follow it. The update reduced preparation time from about 3 hours to under 1 hour and lowered the chance of manual errors. Make sure to use a star structure. Quantify the improvement if possible. Explain the original inefficiency, your analysis, stakeholder buy-in, implementation, and the control or time-saving benefit. Question 7. What does operational risk mean to you? Operational risk is the risk of loss or disruption from failed processes, systems, people, or external events. In an operations role, that could mean a missed payment, incorrect settlement instruction, weak reconciliation, or unapproved change to a report. I view controls as the defense: maker-checker reviews, reconciliations, exception reports, access controls, and clear escalation. Good operations teams do not just fix errors, they reduce the probability and impact of errors. In your answer, talk about failures in people, processes, systems, or external events. Examples might include settlement errors or missed controls, and why prevention, detection, escalation, and documentation matter. Question 8. A trade is due to settle today, but the counterparty has not matched it. What would you do? I would treat it as time-sensitive because settlement cutoffs matter. First, I would verify our trade details: security, quantity, price, settlement date, account, and instructions. If our records look correct, I would contact the counterparty or settlement team to identify the mismatch. If there is market, client, or funding impact, I would escalate early to the manager and front office. I would keep an audit trail of actions until the trade is matched or formally failed. Be sure to mention urgency, checking internal trade details, contacting the counterparty, involving front office or settlements, assessing funding or client impact, documenting actions, and escalating before cutoff times. Question 9. What Excel or data skills would help you succeed in this role? Excel is valuable because many operations problems involve comparing, cleaning, and explaining data. I am comfortable with pivot tables, XLOOKUP or VLOOKUP, SUMIFs, conditional formatting, filters, and basic data validation. I use these tools to identify breaks, summarize volumes, and flag exceptions quickly. I also understand the importance of control around spreadsheets, clear sources, locked formulas, version control, and review checks. I am also keen to build SQL or automation skills. While answering, focus on practical tools such as pivot tables, lookups, conditional formatting, data validation, basic formulas, reconciliations, dashboards, error checks, and willingness to learn SQL or automation tools. Question 10. Describe a time you had to work with a difficult stakeholder. I once worked with a stakeholder who was frustrated because a report was repeatedly delayed. Instead of defending the process, I asked what decision depended on the report and where the timing issue hurt them. I found that one data input arrived late, so I agreed on an interim version, followed by a final version. I documented the timeline and owners. The relationship improved because I focused on their business need, not just my task. Make sure to show professionalism, listening, fact-based communication, separating emotion from issue resolution, confirming expectations, documenting decisions, and maintaining the relationship while solving the operational problem. Question 11. What is your understanding of KYC and AML in banking operations? KYC means knowing who the client is, what business they conduct, who owns or controls the entity, and whether the relationship fits the bank's risk appetite. AML focuses on preventing the financial system from being used for money laundering, terrorist financing, sanctions evasion, or other illegal activity. In operations, accurate documentation, screening, monitoring, and escalation are critical. Weak onboarding or poor records can create regulatory risk and reputational damage. In your answer, talk about verifying customer identity, understanding ownership and source of funds, sanctions screening, transaction monitoring, risk ratings, regulatory expectations, and why accurate documentation protects the bank. Question 12. How do you maintain accuracy when work is repetitive or high volume? Repetitive work becomes risky when people go on autopilot, so I use structure. I follow checklists, reconcile totals before details, and use system validations or Excel checks where possible. I also separate preparation from review because a second look often catches errors. For high-volume tasks, I batch similar items and flag exceptions rather than treating every item the same. If I make an error, I record the cause and adjust the process. Be sure to mention checklists, standard of operating procedures, batching similar tasks, exception-based review, breaks between reviews, maker-checker controls, data validation, and tracking personal error patterns. Question 13. When would you escalate an issue to your manager? I would escalate when an issue has potential client, financial, regulatory, reputational, or deadline impact, or when I am unsure of the correct action. Escalation is not pushing the problem away. It is making sure the right people know early enough to act. I would bring the facts, what I have checked, the risk, possible options, and my recommendation. That helps the manager make a quick, informed decision. While answering, focus on materiality, time sensitivity, regulatory or client impact, control breaches, uncertainty, failed settlement or payment risk, and escalating with facts, options, and recommended next steps. Question 14. What key performance indicators might be used in an operations team? Useful operations KPIs measure both speed and quality. Examples include SLA completion rate, number of aged breaks, settlement fail rate, error rate, turnaround time, exception volume, and client query resolution time. I would not look at KPIs only as scorecards. They should help identify root causes. For example, rising breaks in one product or region may point to a system mapping issue, unclear procedure, or training gap. Make sure to cover timeliness, accuracy, exception volumes, aged breaks, settlement fail rates, SLA adherence, productivity, control breaches, client complaints, and how KPIs should drive root cause improvement. Question 15. How would you handle a cash or payment discrepancy? I would start by confirming the basics: amount, currency, value date, account, beneficiary, and payment reference. Then I would compare the internal record with bank statement data or payment system status to see whether it is a timing issue, booking error, duplicate, or missing payment. Because cash discrepancies can affect clients and liquidity, I would escalate material or time-sensitive items quickly. I would document each step so the resolution is auditable. In your answer, talk about confirming amount, currency, value date, account, payment reference, source systems, approvals, bank statements, potential duplicate or missing entries, escalation, and audit trail. Question 16. Tell me about a time you worked under pressure. During a university finance project, our team discovered a data error the night before submission. I split the work into correction, validation, and presentation updates, then assigned owners and check times. I focused on the sections with the largest impact first, rather than trying to fix everything randomly. We submitted on time with corrected analysis. The lesson I took was that pressure requires structure, calm communication, and control checks, not rushing blindly. Be sure to use STAR. Explain the deadline or risk. Show how you organized work, communicated clearly, avoided shortcuts, and delivered accurately despite time pressure. Question 17. How do you perform root cause analysis on recurring exceptions? I would first collect enough data to see patterns, not just individual incidents. I would group exceptions by product, system, account, timing, and error type. Then I would ask what upstream step creates the break: incorrect static data, late booking, manual input, unclear ownership, or system mapping. Once the likely cause is identified, I would test it, agree a fix with the owner, document the change, and monitor whether exception volumes actually fall. While answering, focus on trend analysis, grouping exceptions by type, product, system, team, or timing, asking why repeatedly, testing evidence, fixing upstream causes, and monitoring after implementation. Question 18. What does responsible growth mean in an operations role at Bank of America? In operations, responsible growth means supporting business growth without weakening controls or creating unmanaged risk. It is not enough to process higher volumes if the process becomes fragile, undocumented, or dependent on shortcuts. I would apply it by focusing on accurate execution, clear escalation, strong reconciliations, and ethical decision-making. It also means thinking about the client and the broader bank, because one operational failure can damage trust beyond one transaction. Make sure to connect responsible growth with client focus, risk management, sustainable processes, ethical behavior, strong controls, regulatory compliance, teamwork, and avoiding growth that creates unmanaged operational risk. Question 19. Tell me about a mistake you made and what you learned from it. I once sent a draft analysis before checking one link tab, and a number was outdated. I noticed it quickly, corrected the file, and informed the recipient rather than hoping it would be missed. The impact was limited, but it taught me to build a final review routine. Now I check source dates, formulas, totals, and version names before sending anything important. I also label drafts clearly to avoid confusion. In your answer, choose a real but manageable mistake. Take ownership, explain the impact, corrective action, communication, and the lasting control or behavioral improvement you adopted. Question 20. Why should we hire you for this operations analyst role? You should hire me because I bring the traits operations teams rely on: accuracy, curiosity, accountability, and calm execution under deadlines. I like working with data and processes, but I also understand that operations is about people, communicating issues, helping stakeholders, and protecting clients. I am comfortable learning complex systems and asking precise questions. At Bank of America, I would bring strong work ethic, risk awareness, and a mindset of improving how work gets done. Be sure to summarize your fit across attention to detail, analytical mindset, teamwork, communication, accountability, risk awareness, ability to learn banking processes, and motivation for Bank of America's environment. If you are still with us, congratulations, you are much ahead of the rest and serious about preparing for your interview. We hope we were able to add value to your preparation and create some helpful content. Do not forget to like and share this video. Your small act can do great things for us.